The best thing about season 2 is dead. The knight in white satin armour has arrived, and it's took one of the best characters this poor season had to offer, because Richie Aprile is sleeping with the fishes, or should I say with the dishes, because he got absolutely put through a meat grinder and is no more. It is Fog Entertainment back with another Sopranos review as we edge closer to the season 2 finale of The Sopranos. Thoughts on this episode before I dive into it?
I can't believe this is how they decided to off Richie Aprile. You bring him in, you basically spend almost an entire season building up a feud with him and Tony. There's friction, there's... I don't know if hatred's the right word, but there's obviously... There's a dislike for each other. The animosity's there, and you think that something's going to happen, something's going to go down. Richie Aprile is pretty much saying to Junior that he wants to off Tony. The build-up isn't great, but you can see where it's going, and you expect to get something between these two characters, and in the end, you get nothing. By the time Tony arrives, he's already in the kitchen floor with a couple of bullets in him. Garbage. Absolute garbage. I mean, I just couldn't... I just couldn't imagine this show.
Soprano fanboys defend this by saying the show pretends to give you what you want and then takes it away from you, because that's the sort of stuff that happens in the real world. Thoughts on that? Is that a good defence, or is that a, here, we've got shite writing?
If we wanted the real world, we wouldn't be watching TV, we'd just be getting on with our real world stuff. If we wanted to get booted in the nuts, man, we would just deal with the real world, we wouldn't watch The Sopranos. You watch TV shows because you want a payoff. Are WWE going to use this argument? Well, we give you crap wrestling now because we want to remind you that the real life ain't fair, ain't all sunshines and roses. I mean, that's a garbage. That's just basically a way... You know what? Anything we do that's bad, any bad writing we do, any bad decisions we make, we're just going to blame it on trying to be realistic and making you remember that life's not fair. I mean, what a load of shit that is. I'm not buying that for a second.
I know, I mean, imagine actually trying to make that an argument. Anyway, let's move into this episode. Tony's helping move stuff into Richie and Janice's new house. And we meet Richie...
What a waste of time that was.
Yeah, Richie Aprile's son. He's dancing. He does ballroom dancing. It's not actually confirmed if he's gay or not, but obviously ballroom dancing is considered gay, which you can clearly see that Richie's not happy with, but Janice isn't really bothered by it. Then we get introduced to Jackie Aprile's son, who Richie would just prefer as his son because he seems just to be a bit more into the sort of mob life rather than ballroom dancing. So, again, like, where's this Jackie Aprile guy been? His son, Junior? Been nowhere. Literally been nowhere. Could this guy not have been introduced at a later date? Or an earlier date, sorry. And, like, no, the thing is about this episode, Tony isn't even in the main plot. He's doing some side mission with his side piece. Honestly, like, what the... what, right... I have no problem with, like, Tony having, like, side missions, right, that ain't, like, the main plot of the episode. But why so much time given to this fucking hooker, escort, whatever you want to call her? Is Gomar.
Oh, Tony.
I'm gonna kill myself, Tony.
I can't live without you, Tony.
Said Lana, she has one leg, and the other one, well, she's going to tan her wrist.
I felt like this was unnecessary, right? He's Tony fucking Soprano, and it's like almost like this whore's dictating his fucking life. He's like, oh, you deserve a better life. I mean, it did lead to some funny scenes with Carmela, and she's like, you're actually getting me to feel pity for the whore you fuck. I mean, I think that was quite funny, but come on, man. You've got a beef in this episode. Like, Richie's making moves to try and kill Tony, and Tony isn't even in the slightest bit involved in this. I thought that was shit. Thought it was very poor. And again, Junior, we'll get into it. So, Richie has basically had enough of Tony, like, hoovering money off him, breaking down all these garbage routes, stealing money. So he decides, fuck it, I'm going to make moves to try and sort him out. So he goes to the acting boss.
I don't agree with him thinking that, you know what, I'm going to come up with a plan, I'm going to devise a plan, take it Tony. But I do think Tony was being extra hard on him. I think he was giving him shit. But then again, I mean, he did cripple one of Tony's good friends. So, well, I say good friend. Acquaintances.
Oh, no, exactly. No, I do get that, but...
Maybe that's why he was unnecessarily hard on him and basically dictating how he earned money and how much he earned and all this stuff.
He does visit Albert Barisi. He's the acting capo since Larry Boy got indicted with Junior, like, previous season, so... Yeah, and he does. What do you think? Seeing he was talking to this guy, trying to like hype up, like we should take Tony out. Do you think he sold it well enough, or do you think it was like a half-arsed attempt?
Half-arsed attempt.
It was, wasn't it?
He didn't really make it.
He didn't believe that he could do it.
Yeah, he should have put. He didn't really get his point across that great. Like, in my opinion,
and we did get a scene.
it was almost like a suggestion rather than we need to do this.
But see, I can kind of understand it though, because if he fully sells him, this guy on the idea, then like, and this guy's like, then goes no, then he runs the risk of this guy going to Tony. But then Richie, you can't be half in or half out, mate. You need to go in.
You need to be fully in.
And when he tells Junior about this, Junior's like, "It's all right, Richie. We'll wait on this." And then as soon as Richie leaves, Junior's like, he couldn't sell. His inability to sell the plan to Albert reflects upon his lack of respect and influence. So Junior's like, "Fuck it, Bobby. You're going to learn a few things here, big man. I'm not going with Richie. I'm going with Tony." And do you feel like Junior just dobbed Richie in the shite here?
And that's what it seemed like to me.
Like Richie's been golden to Junior this entire season.
No loyalty though.
I mean, Junior was stuck in the garbage disposal, man, for 6 hours. Richie came in, lubed him up with Fairy Up liquid, man, sorted him out.
Yeah, it wasn't Tony that helped him, it was Richie.
It was big Richie Aprile, and yeah, I think this is just a backstabbing move. Actually fucking lying to him, saying, "No, we'll wait off in retaliation on Tony before we make any move." And then what, like literally 3 seconds later, he told, "Yeah, we're going to wipe him out." I mean, come on. I like people who actually have morals.
Yeah, why didn't he just say to him straight up, "No, I don't like that's a bad idea, we ain't doing that."
Junior and Richie have been getting screwed by Tony, and like the fact that Tony's like doesn't want this whole coke stuff getting done in garbage routes, and here he is just shafting him.
I know.
Like, I get it, right? I've made a fid about it, like what if Junior actually backed Richie, but at the end of the day, Junior's the guy that wanted to kill Tony in the last season. And here he is, throwing Richie completely under the bus here. Anyway, in my opinion, I think Uncle Junior went down in my estimation here. I like people with morals, and I feel like he jobbed himself out. Talking to a guy with no morals, Big Sal, of course he's a rat, took his wee job as an FBI informant here too serious. He tries to get information about Christopher and this other guy stealing a shipment of Pokemon cards, and then he decides to follow him, and then he crashes his car. And I thought this was just a very cringy scene. Did you not think so? He crashes the car, his legs bust open, then he runs away through the car. And then Skip visits him in hospital, and he's like, "Thal, you're not a government employee, Thal. You should just remain solely on providing information on Tony, Thal. You're not in the FBI, Thal." Thal. He's like, he thinks he's fucking one of us. I kind of feel sorry for Sal, but again, is this not like shit writing? Because when has he shown any scenes in previous episodes that he's like completely in this like FBI mode? He's not.
None.
He seems like reluctant to do it. And then all of a sudden he's like fucking, Skip, I'm going to retire in Arizona and I'm going to become one of you guys. I'm going to help you here. I'm going to be one of the other guys on the case. What?
Yeah, he's not wanted. Previously, he's not wanted to do it. You feel like he's like really guilty,
breaking down
what he's doing to Tony, and now it's almost like, yeah, let's get that bastard. I want to be on your guys' team.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to AJ as well. Like, we see nothing of him, then all of a sudden he's taking Carmela's car for a ride. He's smoking weed, and he's like, "I don't believe in God." I mean, where'd that come from? No reference, no build up, no nothing. Honestly, man, Jesus Christ, disgraceful. Honestly, Carmela then runs into Vic Musto, the guy who was dead in the painting and decorating. She says, "I'm glad we didn't do anything. I'm glad you didn't no-show." Is she really glad, though? Because I think you can clearly tell in this episode she has ran out of patience with Tony. Things are on the rocks. Junior then calls for an urgent meeting with Tony, and then this is where he tells him about Richie's move, and he's like, how do I know you're not in on this, Uncle June? He's like, "You're my nephew, for God's sake." I mean, you're my nephew, mate, but you tried to kill me last season.
Short memory there. Has he got Alzheimer's or something like that?
Yeah, you cannot use that logic here. Tony then, like, we finally get a scene with Silvio. Also, Polly wasn't even in this episode, and Christopher barely featured. But yeah, Silvio, Tony then tells Silvio, and then I feel like this was awful acting for him. Do you not think so? He tells him, Silvio then, like, walks towards the camera, does, like, a deep breath, and goes, "I don't think anyone would have a problem with him going away." It was fucking cringy, wasn't it?
Yep, 100%.
Did not like this one bit. And then you're thinking, right, so what's going to happen here? Is Tony going to send Silvio as consigliere to wipe out Richie? Is he going to do it himself? Is he going to send Chris? Is he going to send Sal to like up Sal's like loyalty bar? Is Polly going to have something to do this episode? No, because we cut to a dinner scene. We've got Richie and Janice. Janice wants to buy all this stuff for the wedding, and Richie's like, how about you hold up on that because finances ain't the best right now. Then she's on about like, well, but you gave $5,000 to your ballroom dancing son. He's like, hey, stop saying that. And she's like, well, what's wrong with it? So what if he's gay? Then Richie, big right hook to Janice's jaw. Bang. Good night. She can't believe it.
On Pride Month of all months.
I know. God damn. Battered him. Little Ricky is battered. Well, little Janice is battered, right? And then he sits down with his meal and he's like, Janice, I'm in no fucking mood today. She whips out a gun. And what are you thinking at this point? Are you thinking she's going to threaten him? Or are you thinking she's going to lay the smack down and shoot him twice?
I don't know what I was thinking. It just happened too quickly. And then the next minute, Janice pulls the trigger. Boom, boom. Shoots Richie. And it's like she shoots him once and then just decides, you know what, screw it. I've already done it. I'll shoot him again. Gets the kill. And it's like, this makes no sense to me whatsoever. It's like, it almost felt like their relationship up until this episode was absolutely perfect.
Yep.
Now, see if like he was being like abusive, and I know he punched her here, whatever, like, or slapped her, but like, see if there was like a history of it, and they were showing signs, and like they were constantly doing it, and it was an unhappy relationship and all that. I mean, maybe you could see this happening, you could see this making sense, but this came completely out the blue.
No, literally, it did. And I just don't get why. I mean, I think the only explanation I've got, I think it's kind of to show you, like, here, these Sopranos have, like, a real burst of temper. But Janice is, like, a woman who's not involved with the mob. And it's always, like a hippie sort of vibe to her.
Yeah, her pulling out a gun and shooting him just because she got socked in the mouth, like, doesn't really...
No, yeah, I mean, maybe if she was, like, cooking dinner and he punched her and she turned around, like, slashed at him, maybe that would be alright. But to actually whip out a gun and fucking just shoot him, cold-blooded murder. Come on.
And like I said, maybe if it was like, you know, a build of things, if it was like multiple attacks, then possibly, but I mean, up until this point, there was like no signs of friction or, you know, her being unhappy. She was loving life with Richie Aprile. Then she says about his son. She gets punched in the mouth, and then basically because of that, shoots him twice and kills him.
Tony then comes into the house. He's like going in like solid snake stealth mode, and then he sees Richie's body, and he must be thinking, "Oh, what a sigh of relief here!
What a assault!
What an assault!" And it is, and it's like this is like the penultimate episode, and this just takes the sting out of the next episode. Like, what's actually what? Like, you've never seen it before, right? But what do you think's actually going to happen in this season finale?
Not a lot, because I thought...
Because the only guy in Richie's corner ratted him out.
Yeah.
So, no, there's
it's not like there's anybody going to get vengeance for the death of Richie Aprile.
Exactly. He then calls Christopher and Furio. They basically dismember the corpse of Richie at the meat cutting equipment from Saltier's. So a pretty gruesome way for Richie Aprile to go, but I mean, I guess it is pretty smart for them to do it. We then get Tony buying Janice a bus ticket to Seattle. And she's like, what did you do with him? He's like, we buried him up on a hill with a little painted fence. And he's like, of course we fucking didn't. Which I thought was kind of funny, but he then like forces her onto the bus, basically tells her like to fuck off. He returns home. Carmela's sitting there and she's like, oh, what about Richie and Janice? And Tony's like, Richie had to go away. And she's like, what do you mean? He's like, he had to go away. And she's like, what do you mean? He's like, Richie is no longer here. And she's like, oh. And she tells Tony, oh, me and Rosaline Aprile are looking to travel to Rome for a few weeks. And he's like, what? And she's like, well, you can drive AJ and Meadow a bit. And he's like, what? And she's like, well, if you don't let me go, I might just commit suicide. Oh, sick wee burn, but we've just had a character like Richie die, and this ends the episode. Her announcing she's going to fucking Rome.
Wouldn't it have been better just to end it on the second shot? For Richie Aprile, Or even the first shot.
Aye, the first shot with him falling back, clutching his chest.
And then the second, you can start the next episode with the second shot.
The next episode, right, could have begun with Tony arriving and him going into the house, not knowing what's happened, and therefore you might think Richie could still be alive, or he's like whipped out his own gun and shot Janice or something. I don't know, something like that. But instead, we end with Carmela announcing she's going to go to Rome, and then you've got Tony doing some deep breathing on the couch. Whoop-de-doo, guys. Anyway, the episode ends. You know what? I actually thought it was an alright episode in terms of build-up for the finale, but then like the final 10 minutes completely undid it, so I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10.
Yeah, I'll give it a 6 out of 10 as well. I thought it was good in parts, but the way Richie Aprile dies is so disappointing. I feel like the entire season has been wasted now.
Yep, and next episode, guys, called Funhouse. Will it be any fun? You'll have to check out the review.
I mean, if we're just a quick comparison, like this would be like The Walking Dead season 2, where you're basically hyping up Shane and Rick all season, and then in Shane's last episode, he gets bit by a walker and just dies. Then Rick turns up and Shane's already laying there dead.
That's diffused.
You know what I mean? Like, what the hell's happened here? The whole season 2 build was between Rick and Shane, and it ended with Rick and Shane, and it's like this season 2, the build was between Richie and Tony, and it ends with Richie dying because he punched his soon-to-be wife because she said it doesn't matter if his son's gay. It's like, I mean, come on.
Come on, damn it. Anyway, guys, you get a 6.
I'll get a
2
6,
6s, so it's just a 6 out of 10. And alright, we're back for the finale, and I tell you what, I don't think... What's the highest rating an episode's got this season? I think it was the episode Richie got debuted in. I believe it was an 8 we gave it.
Mate, I think it was an 8.
And I think the rest have all been 6s to 5s. And there've probably been a few 4s maybe in there. Just not good enough, man. Honestly, looking back, this season sucks. Really bad. But anyway, guys, till next time, peace.